Every so often, a product is created that helps us in life and makes things easier for us. Sometimes a product is created where it helps us medically, and that is the case today. We are talking with Dr. Win Chang, who is not only an orthopedic surgeon, but an inventor of a new device that will help those who are struggling with shoulder pain or potentially recovery from shoulder injury. And Dr. Chang, thanks so much, first of all, for coming in on the show.
Thank you very much, Charlie.
This is an exciting revelation, a new invention that deals specifically with the shoulder and specifically the rotator cuff and the four muscles that deal with the rotator cuff.
That's correct. The inception of this idea came about 12 years ago when I was playing with my daughter with a cat toy. And after was playing with this cat toy, I felt that my shoulder was immensely tired and painful, and in spite of myself keeping myself in shape. And then I realized that there are really two ways of exercising the shoulder. There's one way that traditionally was taught by the orthopedic community, by the physical therapists, and by personal trainers, being the four moves that you push, you lift, you press, and you pull. But I came to realize that it really does not specifically focus on the rotator cuff. The rotator cuff are a specialized group of four muscles that they go into the shoulder. The purpose of that is to stabilize the shoulder so that the shoulder can move in an effective manner. The rotator cuff, as it states, it rotates the shoulder. So in order to be really selective to target training and strengthening of the rotator cuff, the individual must do the functional type of exercise to rotate the shoulder. So that's how I came up with my idea of the rotational training rather than the linearly training program.
And there's nothing like this on the market, right?
No, it's patented, international patented, and also I have a device that is really the only device that is around that electronically tracks the power output of the shoulder, because I have had needles inserted into my own muscle, actually, and converted the number of muscular contractions to how fast one can use the ShoulderSphere. Because as a person lifts any object, that we call it work. For instance, we throw a 5-ounce baseball 60 feet. So the work involved is how much we have to move the weight, the distance. So the weight times the distance is a foot-pound of energy, we call it. And then the concept is how fast you're going to throw it. That is power. So one is work, is how much work you do. The other is how fast you do it. So you throw that 40 miles per hour, it's different amount of power as if the individual throws that 80 miles per hour. So this electronic device guides and trains the competitive athletes into the power output so they can understand, be assured that they have trained to meet the power demand that is necessary for a certain sporting activity. And this can be translationally utilized for boxers and for tennis players, for baseball players, for water skiers, so for any sport that require the repetitive use of the upper extremity, this can be translated into that. So really, my mission in terms of the entire reason why I do this is I really, having been an orthopedic surgeon for the past 25 years and more, I come to a point I realized that I was really working as a firefighter. When the house is on fire, we as surgeons, we go in there, we fix things up, we put out the fire. But I think it is more important and much more beneficial for the individual to empower themselves so they can prevent the house from catching on fire first. Right. And the shoulder problem is one of the most common problems that we see as physicians. Close to 5 million people visit doctors every year because of shoulder problem. Wow. And 50% of them are related to the rotator cuff. And the single most important reason why anybody has shoulder pain are related to either you have a stiff shoulder or you have a weak rotator cuff. And so it's critical for the individual to understand how to strengthen and maintain the rotator cuff in order to minimize the injuries that occur.
Yeah, we'll show you on the video, you'll see how it's being used, and we have illustrations of that. But I think what I like about it most is that there's an audio cue. So this is the way, what you should be hearing. Right? But if you're not doing it right, or if your muscle shuts down, you hear that.
Correct.
And then that lets you know that you've got to modify and change gears to get it back into.
Correct. Major difference in terms of the rotational training is that one is it's a rotational training. So when you do the rotational training, it selectively targets the rotator cuff as opposed to any of the push, pull, lift, and press type of exercise where it does not. The rotator cuff in all daily functional activities work as a stabilizer. It is like the hinge for the door to allow the door to open and close. Mm-hmm. You have a tight hinge, the door opens and closes smoothly. Loose hinge, wobbly door. Weak rotator cuff, loose shoulder. Right. So by doing the rotational training, you convert the rotator cuff into the main driver, and the other muscle groups become the stabilizer. So you sort of have a role reversal. And what is the difference in terms of the muscular efficiency of workout? Again, with my own electrical studies on my own shoulder, it is 200% difference in terms of the selective training of the muscle when you reverse the output of the muscle. And then so the wrist is locked in position. So the only way to rotate the ball with the wrist locked in comes from the shoulder, has to rotate, because the elbow only goes up and down. So this is not only just a visual cue, you see the ball spin while you're spinning, but you also hear the ball spinning. But if the ball bounces up and down, that means that the rotator cuff is weak. Yeah. So the goal of the individual is to maintain the rotational movements of the ball. So one is for endurance, and the mission is to educate the public in a safe, effective, efficient manner to strengthen the rotator cuff in selective fashion. And so this way, for the athletes, they can perform better, avoiding injury. Patients can recover faster with greater ease. And for everybody else, for the average individuals, reduce 50% the chance of you ever having shoulder pain in your lifetime. And there's a potential cost savings of over $40,000 if an individual with a rotator cuff tear undergoes surgery, physical therapy, MRIs. The cost is enormous, and you look at the cost burden for the economy and for individual lost time of work. And then I have patients who need their family members or their friends to, so you're talking about two people, to one person lost time work to drive the individual to see the doctors, and the other individual with the pain and the medication. For baseball players, commonly we hear about Tommy John with the elbow injury. After surgery to repair the Tommy John for the ligament in the elbow, probably 2/3 of them eventually do return to competitive level, but after a year or 2 years out. But with those individuals with an actual rotator cuff tear, less than 3% ever return.
Really? And you have a great model here that shows exactly why it's important for those muscles to be able to be strong, to kind of hold the shoulder in place.
Correct. The shoulder is different from any other joint in the body because it offers the greatest mobility. Because of the great mobility involved, you have to sacrifice the stability. The hip joint is very stable because it has a socket around it, and then the hip does not move out. But in the shoulder, there's no socket. It really is just a hemispheric ball over here that is met with this little disc. This is almost, if you reverse it, looks like a golf ball on a tee. Yeah. Very unstable. Right. So the only way to stabilize it is what we call a fourth couple. Requires two types of muscles in order to move the shoulder. First muscle is the rotator cuff that they wrap around the top. They have to pull it in, suck it in, and in a dynamic fashion. Once it's pulled in, secured in position, then you can have the other 13 muscles, the trapezius, the deltoid, all the power groups that they come down below and they can lift the arm up. Because in order to lift it up, you have to stabilize it. Mm-hmm. And the problem with the injury in the shoulder is because weakness in the rotator cuff. So when one moves with an inefficient rotator cuff, the shoulder moves upward. And with the abnormal motion, either upward or backwards, with throwing to the front and so forth, they create injury to the bumper ligaments, what they call the labrum. Yeah. You know, a lot of athletes have labral tear, very common. That's all because of the inefficiency of the rotator cuff. Loose hinge, wobbly door, weak rotator cuff, unstable shoulder. Right. And then furthermore, the next stage will be what they call impingement. Impingement tendonitis, well known about impingement. That's because of the shoulder is moving in abnormal fashion, eventually leads to rotator cuff tear. And you're talking about expensive recovery and time. Sure, yeah.
All right, so you're in production now, we know that. It's an international device being used by some very prominent athletes and athletic programs. Right. I can say the Yankees, the Atlanta Braves, there are players on there who are using this already. For those people here in the Hudson Valley, which I think it's great because you're a Hudson Valley guy, you live in the Hudson Valley, we've got an inventor right here. Where can people get more information about ShoulderSphere?
They can be obtained, right now the information is available on my website. It's ShoulderSphere.com, www.ShoulderSphere.com, or they can reach me personally, and I would love to communicate with the community because my mission is to really educate the public in terms of how to, the proper way to exercise, and ShoulderSphere.com.
All right, great. Dr. Chang, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.